guys, Natalie here again with English hawthorn, also known as one-seeded hawthorn. And this particular species of hawthorn is the most common one in Washington. And we use the berries for medicine. It's also a food. They don't taste super great because they're not super sweet or super sour. They're kind of bland, I would say. So usually people make jams or chutneys or tinctures or honey or something like that, or syrup. This species of hawthorn is considered invasive in a lot of areas in Washington, mostly because it is pretty aggressive grower. This particular grove we're in, like, there's just hawthorn trees absolutely everywhere. And one of the reasons it's considered invasive is actually because it obstructs the paths of livestock. And a lot of invasive species are based on whether it affects livestock. Sometimes it kills livestock, sometimes it obstructs their movement in large tracts of land. So obviously there's no livestock in this park where we are. So anyway, so one-seeded hawthorn is called one-seeded hawthorn. I just ate the berry off of the outside of this so you guys could see there is only one seed. And the scientific name is Crataegus monogyna, which means one-seeded hawthorn. Monogyna actually comes from the same root as vagina, which basically is kind of like a female reproductive organ. So other hawthorn berries are going to have more or less seeds than this one. So this one is pretty easy to identify. They also have, let's see if I find a really good one. Here's a good one. They have little stars on the ends of them, and that's the remnants of the flower. These are actually the remaining sepals of the flower. The petals have fallen off. And we actually harvest hawthorn flowers in May. They bloom for about a week in May. And berries I usually harvest in October. Right now it's October 7th, I think. And so I kind of go like between the 7th and the 20th-ish in October, so mid-October. And to harvest, it's pretty simple. You want to pick a tree that doesn't look too dry or too diseased. And I picked actually these hawthorn berries in my hand so you can see that sometimes they like to grow a black mold on the surface. And I like to try to avoid those particular ones. The ones on the tree behind us are pretty good. They're dark red, they're soft enough to just squish with your fingers, and they don't taste sour, they don't taste astringent. That's how you know when they're ripe. Like, you want to be able to squish it and you want to be able to taste it. Yeah, these taste super bland. They don't like make my mouth dry. They don't make me shudder like an unripe fruit might. So you always want to test. Some people harvest their berries too early. One of the downsides of that is, number one, it doesn't have the same constituents. And number two, they're not going to taste quite as good. And number three, they have a lot more pectin in them when they're unripe. So there's more likely, pectin basically is what makes jam all rigid. So your tincture might just be like a giant jello cube in there. So it's easier to make medicine with ripe hawthorn berries for that reason. Last things to say about hawthorn, let's look at the leaf shape really quick. Hawthorn has lobed leaves, a lot like oak trees, and it kind of has irregular lobes. So some of them have like 3-ish lobes, some of them have 5-ish lobes, some of the leaves are even bigger than that. Other hawthorn species are going to have similar morphologies, but a little different. You can look up black hawthorn, which is our native species of hawthorn. It's Crataegus douglasii is the Latin name. And that hawthorn actually has like more just like simple oval-shaped leaves with the occasional lobe. But they still have that lobe that unites all of the species. And those species, that black hawthorn berries actually ripen in July, which is kind of random. Yeah, I always miss them because I'm not thinking about hawthorn berries that time of year, because I think of hawthorn berries in like the mid-fall kind of thing. Any last notes on hawthorn? They're a pretty common tree around. Strangely, there's a lot like next to the highway. There's a lot in local parks. You want to look for areas that are just kind of like let to go wild. Right now we're in a wetland with black cottonwood trees as well, and they seem to really like it here. I don't see them many up in the mountains, like at higher elevations. So I would look at the lower elevations, west side of the mountains, not the east side. And I'm sure you'll find them this time of year because the berries are bright red. That's all I have to say about hawthorn. I might write a little bit in the comment section or the description about the medicinal uses.